Good morning. We are so pleased that you have joined us this morning for our chat with STL Village co-founder Gloria Gordon. We also thank Gloria for her willingness to share with us this morning. This year has been a monumental one for our co-founder Gloria Gordon. On August the 4th, Gloria celebrated her 100th birthday, and on August the 6th, celebrated this momentous occasion with a party with friends and family, many of whom had traveled to St. Louis to attend. August 6th was designated by Mayor Tashara Jones as Gloria Gordon Day in the city of St. Louis. Gloria was featured in a Riverfront Times article that highlighted her many accomplishments and commitment to the climate for future generations. And last but not least, Gloria was recently designated as one of the 75 most influential women in the city of St. Louis. We're so glad that you're here with us today, Gloria. Gloria, we just want to look back and have you share some of the highlights of your life. I remember you telling me that you spent your formative years in White Plains, New York. Can you share some of your early memories in White Plains?
Well, my favorite time was the weekend when my father would be off and he would take my sister and me out to the country and go to a town called Carmel, New York, where he grew up. And it was just, a one-horse town. And so I have very fond memories of that.
Wonderful. So I remember you telling me that you had organized a lemonade sale, was it, for children for fresh air? You and a friend of yours. Could you share a little bit about that?
Well, my friend's name was Bubsy. She was my dear friend. I miss her now. And this was her idea, but I was sort of the lieutenant, but she was the captain. And we had a lemonade stand out on the sidewalk in front of their house. And the New York Herald Tribune, once a year, would ask people to send in money to the Tribune Fresh Air Fund so they could send some children to the country for a week. So we had the lemonade out on the sidewalk, and some neighbors came and thankfully had lemonade and paid for it. So that was an early experience of wanting to do something to help other people.
Exactly. So that sounds sort of like your first step of activism, you and your lemonade sales. And you had a grandmother who you were very close to that you would often spend the summers with. Is that right?
Well, not the whole summer, but I would often stay with her. It was my maternal grandmother, and we had a very close connection. And when I stayed with her, she knew I liked grapes. So if grapes were in season, she would say, "Now, Gloria, these these are some grapes, and your mother said to tell you not to swallow the pit, but I know you're not going to swallow the pit. So here are the grapes." So we had a very good relationship.
So that was an understanding between grandmother and granddaughter.
Exactly.
So you became an organizer and activist at an early age. Can you share your experience in organizing the Young People's Rally for Franklin Delano Roosevelt?
Well, that was when I had just graduated from college. the rally was already planned by a number of colleges in the New York City area. We're going to have a rally in Carnegie Hall. And I happened to be looking for a job. I had just graduated from college, and I went to a certain office related to the campaign, and I, said I was looking for a job. And they said, "Okay, we need someone to run this rally for Roosevelt in 1944." So that was an amazing experience. Um, the colleges in the New York City area had all sold tickets to the rally. So the tickets were pretty much sold. But my job was to uh, plan the program for the rally. So I thought, oh, I don't know how to do that. So they said, no problem. Every day or every other day, go down to the Astor Hotel. It's a hotel that isn't there anymore. And go to a certain desk in the lobby, which was a desk for people who were available to support Franklin D. Roosevelt's campaign, and ask them who have they got for, tell them the date of the rally, who have they got to come and perform there, singers and whatever. So that sounded pretty weird. So, but I started going to the Astor Hotel a few times a week, and sure enough, a number of uh, performers, mainly singers and speakers, volunteered to come and perform at the rally. And they were, a lot of them were well-known names. So I put together enough people for the rally, and just amazingly. And it was a wonderful rally. And when it was time for the rally itself, the organizers said to me, "Where are you going to be, Gloria?" I said, "I'm going to sit in a box up in the balcony." And they said, "Oh, we thought you were going to sit on and tell us what to do." I said, "No, you guys figure out what to do, and I'm just going to sit in the box in the lobby." I was just totally nervous, but somehow the performers were wonderful, and it all worked.
That sounds like a tremendous opportunity for a young college graduate. And I understand that through that, you had an opportunity to meet or at least come in contact with Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yes,
Tell us a little bit
yes.
about that.
Well, as a result of that little job, I got my next job was with the United States Student Assembly, and Eleanor Roosevelt was one of the sponsors of that organization. So that's how I got to meet Eleanor Roosevelt. She was just a very informal person and wonderful to meet.
And just really a tremendous role model for women during that period of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So after that experience with the Young People's Rally, your life took a detour and brought you to St. Louis when you relocated with your husband, Barry Commoner, who was a professor of botany at Washington University, along with your two children. And how would you describe your early days in St. Louis?
We had a number of very interesting friends who professors at WashU. It was a very sort of dynamic period of time. And one of probably the most exciting thing that we did was to start the baby tooth survey. Because it was an era of nuclear testing in on the West Coast. They were testing nuclear weapons, and the tests were spreading radioactive air across the way the prevailing winds are from the West Coast, and even came across St. Louis. So that was an era when people were trying to have their children not drink milk other than local milk. Like we had a friend in California who sent us a bag of dehydrated milk for our children. So we started to measure how serious it was, the fallout from nuclear testing. We started, Louise Reese, her husband was Eric Reese, a professor at WashU. She was an MD who worked in the St. Louis school system, and she would encourage the children to send in their baby teeth when they fell out to her office, and that's how the baby tooth survey started. That the teeth from that were collected in that baby tooth survey have been used for quite a lot of research over the years on how radioactivity affects children. And she made a button when a child, the button said, "I gave my tooth to science." And they would get the button when their mother, whoever, would send in their tooth to the baby tooth survey. And it was something all over town then.
Well, I definitely remember when I was in elementary school and they were encouraging us to give our baby teeth for that survey. So it's amazing now that I'm getting an opportunity to talk to you about it.
Well, it was amazing on the part of Louise Reese, actually. I mean, I was just sort of present when we invented the baby tooth survey. I mean, I went downtown and talked to a PR friend of mine, and I said, "What should we call this?" And he said, "Call it a baby tooth survey." So that was how that happened. But all of the work actually was collecting the teeth and so on. Louise Reese, she gets the credit for all that.
Exciting.
So those years were very scary about nuclear testing.
I do remember. And you went on to continue your education at Washington University, earning a master's and doctoral degree in psychology. And will you share your work? I believe your focus was on occupational psychology. What brought you to that, and what kinds of things did you do in that area?
I was interested in working class issues in the workplace and what was healthy and unhealthy. My father died at the age of 50 of the pollution in his place of business from automobile exhaust. So I was pretty conscious of occupational health hazards. And I teamed up with Don Tepes, a professor at St. Louis University. Anyhow, I teamed up with him and I studied the health hazards of shift workers. That was a study that was his main project at the time. And I interviewed many shift workers. I went to their homes and interviewed them, people who worked either night shift, evening shift, or changeable shifts, and their sleeping patterns. Don Tepes was interested in sleep, so I became quite interested and aware of the importance of sleep there. So that was what I did at St. Louis U.
And at some point, your interests developed in the area of ageism and aging in place, which led you to your vision to create STL Village. Will you share why you believe that the village movement was important and what steps did you take to help organize STL Village?
Well, the main step in organizing STL Village happened on the sidewalk here, this part of town. I was walking along, and a friend of mine knew uh,
Arthur?
Okay. A friend of mine knew Arthur Culbert and introduced us there on the sidewalk. And we immediately clicked, and Arthur and I teamed up. And what resulted from that was STL Village. I would not have pulled it together the way he did. That's not my best skill set, but Arthur, he and I worked together very well. And right away, he liked my idea of.
So I think that the focus was aging in place.
Yes, yeah, thanks. Okay, he liked that focus, and we formed STL Village. It didn't have a name yet, but
I remember at some point you and Arthur and I believe some others caught the megabus to Chicago to learn more about the village movement.
right. Uh, this village movement was starting in a few places in this country, but we hadn't really heard of it in St. Louis. But then we heard that there was a village in Chicago, and we decided to go and see what was happening there. And Arthur and someone else, I forget who, and I went and just got all the background on we needed to come back to St. Louis and start working to start a village here. And uh, Arthur and I co-founded STL Village, but I mean, his energy was a big part of how it happened. And it was pretty exciting.
So I know you introduced me as well as others to the whole concept of ageism. And that was is a very important issue to you. Can you share a little bit about how you feel about ageism and the effect that it has on older adults?
Well, ageism is, yes, it's a huge factor, alongside of sexism and other isms. I became very interested in ageism during as we put the village together, and there was a lot to read about it, and it's a whole area that got more explored here at WashU. I think ageism is something that we're all subject to. I would say women especially, but it sort of creeps up on us. Uh, we're just kind of going along and feeling terrific, and then something happens, and we realize they don't. It's hard to get a new job. They think we're too old, and so on and so forth. So ageism is an enormous factor.
So I really appreciate you sounding the horn about ageism, because I think that a lot of times it remains under the cover when
Yeah,
it really needs to be exposed for what it is. So we really
exactly.
appreciate that. And I know that when you and Arthur and the Exploratory Committee worked on organizing STL Village, diversity was also very important to you. And as a matter of fact, when the village was organized, it specifically was created to include a diverse community. Why was diversity important to you?
Um, I have had a history of being concerned about racism, and it seemed that a village certainly should be diverse, and but it wouldn't be an easy thing to do. You'd have to work at it. So one of the things I feel so good about is that STL Village is developing into a wonderfully diverse village.
And I think that's attributed to your vision, to your commitment to diversity as a principle, even with starting the diversity committee at the beginning of the village. Because as we approach our 10th year, SDL Village is a model in diversity throughout the country. So we owe you a debt of gratitude for that and for your commitment in that area. And your passion has become climate change. And as a matter of fact, you're featured on the front of the Riverfront Times with a sign that says, "Save the climate for our grandchildren." Tell me what that means to you.
The climate situation is pretty scary. And we see how everything is getting warmer, and the climate is not what it was, and it's being ignored in many, many ways. So um, the question is, how can we as activists do something about this? And I would say that my my main hope right now is that I'll have some energy, even at this age, to encourage work to call attention to this issue and do something about it. It's not easy, but that's where I feel that I'd like to put my shoulder to the wheel.
And I agree, it's such an important issue, and every day we're experiencing the effects of climate change. So we certainly appreciate you calling attention to that issue. And I just have one final question, and I just thank you so much for taking this time to share with us. But can you just share your secret for living a long and active life with us?
Well, who knows? But my my information about health could be playing a part. That your diet matters and your exercise matters, and eating junk food is not good. uh, uh, there's some things that you can do with your diet for a longer life. But I also think that having a mission in life and knowing what you're interested in and trying to uh, work in those areas is also leads to a longer life because you're you're seeing uh, you're seeing some progress in an area that you're concerned with, and you don't feel hopeless or helpless. You've got something to do that's making a difference.
I think that's some great advice that all of us can take heed to. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish our chat today?
Well, I'm very impressed with the diversity that has developed, and I'm very in STL Village, and I'm very happy about that.
Great. And you set the stage for us, and we appreciate everything that you've done to help us. We're approaching our 10th anniversary. Who would have believed that? There's a picture of our launch from the History Museum almost 10 years ago. And so we're standing strong, and we owe so much to you and Arthur for putting your hand to the plow and helping us to create this wonderful community. So thank you so much, Gloria, for all that you do.
Well, thank you.